Hi, and welcome to another video tutorial by Kevin Harper. In this video we're going to model this very simple looking mechanical object. It is quite of a challenge because you want to have clean geometry so that you can turbo smooth it and chamfer it correctly, but I'll explain that in a minute. This is a fun little object that you can find on the internet. So if you type in I think it is 02 dash in the machine, you will get to a Google page, click on images, and it is the first image that pops up. Just drag that into your folder and then we get started. So the first thing we can do is, if we're looking at this this image, we can see that the length of this object is 100 units. I'm just going to guess that this is centimeters. So we're going to make a box in the top viewport, and we'll position that at a space of 0, 0, 0, and we're going to make that 100 centimeters in length, 25 centimeters in height, 30 centimeters in width, and then 25 centimeters in height. We're going to call this mechanical part. And then we're going to make a plane. The size is fairly irrelevant now, but we are going to make it 250 by 250. At this point the size is really irrelevant, but what you want to take note is that right now it has segments. We just want this to be one segment by one segment, and we're going to call this ref plane 01. Okay, so when we have that, we can go into our wherever you stored your image and just drag that image onto your plane. If I'm going to create a line here just to demonstrate what the problem is, if I'm creating a line here, do you see the line? No, you don't see the line because this background is white. Okay, so I don't want this background to be white of the reference plane. So I'm going to go into the material editor and drag this material in here, and instead of feeding this texture directly into the diffuse channel, I'm going to add a color correction. Feed the texture into the color correction and then feed the color correction into the diffuse channel instead. That will allow me to go in here and say, maybe I want this to be darker, like so. So now I can still see the lines, but the background is nice and dark, so if I now would add a line, I would be able to see it, right? However, maybe I want a little bit more emphasis on these lines, then I can add a mix map, and I'll just drag this into the diffuse channel instead, drag this into the color 1. For the color 2, I can just say maybe something like a color correction with a color bluish, and then we're going to use the same texture, but this time I'm going to copy it over. I'm going to take off the brightness changes that I made, but I'm going to invert it and use it as a mask for the blue. So now you can see that there's some nice blue lines. It might be a little bright. Right, so that can make it easier for us to see what's going on. However, I still, in my other monitor, I still always have my reference up so that I can read the numbers really nicely without any hassle. So now, as you notice that this is disproportionate, the ratio, right? So the image that we dragged on here is skewed. What we can do is we can select our reference plane, add a UVW map modifier, and click on bitmap fit. This will allow us to then select that particular bitmap that we're using as a scale for the UVW map, right? So you can see now the image has changed, which will allow me to go back down underneath the UVW map to the plane and scale the plane as much as I want without scaling the texture, right? So I'm not actually going to scale the plane. What I'm going to do is add a edit poly on top of it. This right here is the top view. So we're going to grab this one. Now, notice how the reference is actually a lot larger the than the object itself. Now, you might be tempted to scale the object to the reference, but remember, we have already scaled this object according to the dimensions of the dimensions of the object. So what we want to do now is scale this first reference to the object instead. Alright, that's not bad. Okay, we're gonna go more with the numbers than we are with the reference image, but try to get it as close as possible. So now that we have this kind of side view, let me also organize my file a little bit so that I can navigate through here easier. I'm going to add this reference plane to a layer called reference planes. And this object I'm going to add to a layer called, I'm going to add it to a layer called mechanical part. So now that I have that, I can now hide the mechanical part, and I know that this reference object is now to scale, right? Right, line that up real nice, bring that back there, and now we have our little reference box. Now a good idea would be to grab these, go into the properties, and tell them not to be frozen, not to be gray when they're frozen, show frozen and gray. That way we can now freeze this layer, right? So we're not selecting our references by mistake, but we can still see the reference planes. So now we can unhide our little fun box. First I'm going to turn on my snapping tool to vertexes, and then I'm going to create a tape. This is in your helpers menu. This tape will allow me to draw a line that shows me the exact length of the line, right? So right now the length of the line is 100, but I want to specify that length myself. I'm going to say the length should be 75. So now you can see the line stops here, right? So what I can do then is grab the mechanical part, convert it to an editable poly, grab these edges, ring it around. Actually the shadow stuff is kind of annoying me, so I'm going to turn that off. So I'm going to just say shade it and make sure that no shadows are on. Okay, good. Yeah, that's better. So I'm going to grab this edge, I'm going to ring it around, and then make a connection, and then I'm going to drag that edge right to that 75 mark. You see? I'm also going to hit J so that I don't see these white lines around that make up the box. So so that's our first cut. then I'm going to grab this polygon. I'm going to turn off the snapping tools, they are aggravating now. And then we'll just extrude that cut up all the way to the top, right? And we can see that in the front viewport, approximately there. And then the next step would probably be getting these chamfered chamfered corners in. Now, if you noticed in the reference image, if you're looking at the top view, this corner has a big strong chamfer. This has a big strong chamfer, and you can see from the side view too that this is that's how it is. Okay, so now we're gonna chamfer the side. I'm gonna chamfer this according to the reference, like so, and that looks pretty good. And then the next step would be to bring that cut in. You see in the reference image, you see this indentation here. So let's do that. I'm going to make this like semi-see-through so I can see the lines behind it, and then I'm gonna grab this edge, ring it around, connect it times 2, right? I'm gonna look at this left viewport. You can see I'm gonna have to slide that down like so, and bring them closer to each other, or pinch them like so. That looks about right. Let me grab this edge, ring it around, right, and then connect it with no pinch, or there might be some pinching, but definitely no slide. So I'm going to go into the front viewport, and I'm going to align this line with that line so that I can connect them real nicely by using the pinching. So I'm dragging this over, and that looks about right. So now I'm going to connect this and this and this vertice, this and this vertice, this and this vertice. Okay, great. So now, so now the next step, I'm gonna grab these polygons here, and delete. And then I'm going to first bridge this side over, and then bridge this side over. Right? Now I'm gonna need a cut along the top here. So I'm gonna grab this edge and this edge, connect it with one edge, slide that over, get in the left viewport, go to okay, can't see it, so I'm gonna go to vertex mode instead, and now I can see them. I think this is the line, right? Let me make sure from perspective view. Yep, that's the line. So I'm gonna go back into left viewport and just align that with these other ones here. And once I got that aligned, I'll just connect these two and these two. I'll delete that tape thing because I don't need that anymore, but I'll be making more tapes later on. And I'm gonna grab this one and align it over here. good. And now this one with that one. Alright, once that is accomplished, then I'll grab this edge and connect it here, bridge it over. I could have done those together, that's alright. And grab these two, bridge them across. The next step, I guess, would be to give it this kind of curved edge, and then we're going to have to clean up this geometry because this curve is going to mess everything up over here. Anyway, let's start that. So we'll just grab this. Then we're going to go into our left viewport, and we're going to chamfer that. Chamfer amount something like this here. That makes sense. And then we'll just give it a few sections. You see the curvature is different, which could be changed with like you can make an arc instead, and then connect it, or inside of a cylinder and then connect that, or whatever the case. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to leave that as is. In the reference image, the top view, from the top view, there is this insert here that is kind of you know, has like you see it right here. And then in the front, from the front view, you can see that there are two holes inside the walls. So I'm guessing this 4.5 is the radius of the hole, and so we're going to make a circle that will be that will have a radius of 4.5. So I'll make a reference circle, give it a radius of 4.5. The distance from here, from the edge to the middle of that radius is 10, and the distance from this edge to the middle of this radius is 50. So let's just use some tapes to position that circle. So we'll start off with first ringing this around and giving it one connection straight in the middle. So created a line in the middle, right? What I'm going to do is turn my snapping back on, create a tape on the helpers, and draw a tape out from here to this vertex. Where it is fairly relevant, because I'm going to specify the length anyway. So the length is going to be 10. Oops, made it 110. So that's where the radius of the first circle is, and then we're going to make another tape from here to this vertex, but this one is going to be 50, right? So one ends here, one ends there. So where the middle of the vertex is, or the circle is going to be, let's add some cuts. I'll use a slice plane just to make my life easy. Maneuvering this thing. That looks about right. Click slice, and then one here. Click slice. Got a nice little cut there. And now I'm going to turn my snapping tool back on, but I'm also going to use pivot point so that I can position this the circle object from the pivot point to the center vertex point. Right? So now we see that this circle is in position. This is a very close proximity to this other line, but we'll deal with that later. So let's make a copy, which goes right on that line. Looks good. I'm going to turn my snapping off and make some more cuts for the edges of these circles. So I'm going to start with a slice plane again. This time I'll bring it to this end. Nice little cut, and then a cut here. Alright, so now we have the cuts all set up to make these circles. Now to make the circle, it's sometimes a little annoying to make a circle out of a spherical shape, but you have a pretty good reference here. So you're just going to grab these, the vertices that make up the corners and the vertice that makes up the middle, and hit connect. Right? You can do the same thing to the other one and hit connect. So, I just hit the reference plane, and I'm going to make this one cut down here on the bottom. So I just use the cut tool this time, go from this vertice to this vertice, and whenever you use the cut tool afterwards, it's often a good idea to grab all the vertices and just check your weld. Make sure that you didn't create like overlapping vertices, right? So now I have a weld set with a low threshold, but the before and after is the same, so there is no problem, right? So now I grab all these center vertices, which is going to be the center and the corner, and this corners, and connect. And then I'm going to grab the centers from the top and the bottom and chamfer them into circles, and that looks about right. So one thing to note is that if you look at this drawing from the top view, this one is actually not a circle. I just created it in the sense of two circles because that's how the basic geometry there is of that is there. But this part here is all open, so we're gonna have to make some cuts to connect those areas. So I'm gonna make a cut from let's use the cut tool from here to here, right? Now this caused some problems. As you can see, there's a triangular shape here, which is going to be a problem, and here, which is going to be a problem when it comes to actually creating the when it comes to creating the turbo smooth. But I'm gonna fix that in a second. We're gonna actually use this line out here. Okay, so I'll show you what I mean. So I'm gonna grab this one and then this one, and now we got that, and we'll do the same thing on the bottom. Right, we'll cut from this edge here to this edge, and from this edge to that edge. And now to make that connection, we're gonna grab this, and this. And now, what you might have not expected, we're also going to grab this, and this, and this. And we'll do the same thing at the top. I'm just selecting the polygons that I determined to be cut out, right? So now we just cut these polygons out. What we can do now is, you can see here that this is yeah, good. No, that's good. Okay, so now you can grab this edge and bridge it to this edge. That way we got rid of that triangle that we saw earlier, right? And if you're not following these steps and you still have your triangles, you will realize when we get to the turbo smoothing part why I'm getting rid of the triangles. So yep, so that looks pretty good. You can line these up a little better if you like, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna grab these two, bridge it, and now we have our geometry inside. I'm not sure if that's inverted, but looks fine. Looks fine to me. And now because I use the cut tool so much, I'm a little nervous, so I'm gonna check to make sure that nothing changed. Alright, everything's good. So that's that section. Now let's add those holes, right? So we know that one of these holes from the bottom to the middle is the distance is as you can see is 40, and then the second one is 35 above that. So I'll start with a tape, turn on my snapping as always, and I'll draw a tape from this corner to that corner, and I'll specify this as 40. Oops, 400. And then I'm going to turn off my snapping, make a copy of that tape, and give it a length of 35. Make sure that it's right on top of the end of that first one, and then maybe move it over a little bit just to, oops, that's gonna be an issue. That's fine, I can tell what's going on. Okay, so now I can grab my circular references, which I did not delete, but they are not showing because I isolated the selection. And then I can, before I move my circular references, let me make my cuts. So I'm going to start with looking at this one. Going to use the slice plane again to make my life easy. Not sure if the tape starts at the bottom or the bottom. Okay. Okay, and do my little cut, and then from this perspective I can't really see the other end of the tape. There we go. So that's where the middle of the circles are going to be. So now I can grab this circle, turn on my snapping with pivot point, and align the circle to the place that I want it to be. Make a copy. Now this is going to be interesting, but we'll just ignore it. We'll just act like that's not happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this edge, loop that around, and going to go Control Delete, okay, to get rid of it. I don't like problems. Okay, so now in the front and in the back, oh, I didn't make the cuts on the back, right? So grab this one. Let me make sure that I'm not grabbing vertices on the other side. Just connection. Same on this side. Connect. And then I'm going to start with the bottom first because we're going to do this a little different. So just like before, I'm going to chamfer this one. Looks like I grabbed some vertices I didn't want to grab. Chamfer this really nice. And then on this one here, we're going to do something a little different, just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to make the circle, but I'm going to make it look as if it's even cleaner by putting these vertices on each other and then maybe grabbing these vertices. See, right now I have 8 vertices selected. I'm going to weld it to 4. So now I have 4 vertices selected, right? I'm going to do the same thing on this side. 2, 4, 6, 8, weld 4, right? So far it looks good. I can grab this and do my little bridge thing. Cut through real nice. Do a bridge here too. Alright, so far so good. Now the next biggest step is that curved top, right? Because as we can see in the reference, we got this curved area at the top. So let's go in here, front viewport, and just make this semi-see-through, I guess. Grab these. This time it's make sure that you don't have ignore back facing selected because you want the whole line. Drag that down a little bit. Drag these down a little bit. And then these two need to be dragged down and pulled in some. Oops. Right. Something like that. So, everything's looking good. We got our base model, right? It's not a clean model yet, but we got a base model. That's pretty much like if we wanted it from a distance, then that's pretty much all we would need, right? What we're gonna do now, before we'll save out anything, we're gonna grab everything on this side of the aisle and delete. And now let me make sure it looks clean. Looks pretty clean. Yep, and now let's add a symmetry. Flip it if it has to be. And yeah, that looks like it's supposed to. Sweet. Okay, so now it looks like we have a nice, sweet little model, right? Now, as you know, in CG, you never want to have hard edges like this because it's going to look ugly. Like it's not going to catch any highlights and so on and so forth. So you want to chamfer those edges. You want this to be a smooth. You don't want this to be so polygonish. You want this to be smooth, so on and so forth. You want highlights to be caught in these edges and in these edges and so on and so forth. So obviously the model will need some detailed additions, right? But we can't just throw a turbo smooth on there, because what's gonna happen is it's gonna look like something completely different, right? Like what is going on here, right? It looks more like a toilet now. And take a look at what's happening over here. This is because we had triangulated these edges, while on this one it came out, despite the fact that everything looks crappy, this came out a lot better on this one because we did not triangulate these, right? So let's just turn that off for a second, and we'll go back under we'll go back underneath the symmetry, and then we'll say, alright, well, we don't want this to be triangulated, so I'm going to grab these polygons and we're gonna say bye-bye to them, right? Gotta do what we gotta do. And now nice little bridge here, nice little bridge here. We grab these two edges, ring them around, connect, right? Grab these two and these two, weld, right? And grab this edge and this edge, chamfer. Oh, sorry. Before the chamfer, we're gonna grab this edge, this edge, this edge. I mean, not edge, vertices, 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 and connect. And now grab this one and chamfer. But this time, we'll tuck that in a little bit. And then we'll grab this one, delete this, and this edge, this, and this edge, bridge it in, and now we're back to a decent hole, right? Alright, so that was the little lesson on the triangular thingies. They don't work very well with turbo smooth, other things. So over here, this is obviously not gonna work for us in any way, shape or form, so let's clean this up a little bit. First of all, I'm going to delete every polygon on this side that makes up that crazy structure, and then I'm going to see, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 polygons that we need to connect. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 polygons that we can connect to. So what we can do is grab another one. If we want, we can move this edge over, this loop over some, and then just we'll add another swift loop, maybe like around here. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So all we gotta do is grab this, and this, grab this, and this, bridge, and it's nice and clean. Super clean. Alright, sweet. Now, I'm just gonna make sure again that I don't like open edges and stuff like that, so I'm gonna just make sure again that we are in the clear. 12 before, 12 after, it's looking good. Okay, so but still, I mean, now that this is much cleaner model, we still can't really add a turbo smooth, right? I mean, we're losing all the detail that we've added, so we're just gonna have to chamfer some edges to maintain the shape that we want, but yet let it still be able to be nice and smooth. So how we're going to do that is we're going to grab this edge, for instance. We'll loop that, didn't go very far. We'll loop this. Okay, that went around nicely. We'll grab this one, loop it. This one, loop it. Okay, that looks like it's doing what it's supposed to. Now we're gonna grab this one and this one, and we also need to grab these two. Now we can loop these, but we might get some undesired results. So far so good. Alright, so grab this one, any edge, any outstanding edge will loop. I'm going to do the circles separately because and you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to add edit poly on top of this. I didn't lose my selection or anything. I'm gonna name this chamfer, so that these changes will be reversible. You know what I mean? Like if I for some reason want to do structural changes to the geometry, I could go back into my edit poly without having to deal with the chamfered model, which is a lot harder to deal with, right? So let me tell Pandora that we're still listening. It's gonna give us an ad, but it's all good. So yeah, so we got, oh, there we go, 2 more edges here. So we got all the edges except for this one, because I'm gonna make a different scale chamfer. And let's try to see what happens if we chamfer this. So we're gonna go in, maybe, did I click on chamfer? No, I clicked on extrude. Okay, so let's see what we got. Alright, looks pretty good. Now mind you, this will create some geometry that you might not like these triangles here. I'm gonna give it a chamfer edge of maybe this size, and then I'm gonna give it an extra edge in the middle, just to make sure that it stays a little bit more rigid. Now this should be fine as far as the turbo smooth is concerned. Mind you, don't chamfer these edges, or you're gonna have some hard edges where you don't want hard edges. Okay, let's see what the outcome of that was. Turbo smooth. Alright, so it looks really good, with the exception of this right here. So where the symmetry is meeting up is where it's messing up, right? So it looks pretty good for the most part, right? Now the real test is, like, if you can dial this up, then the model is pretty clean, right? Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's turn this off. So the problem here comes in when you notice this chamfer is being killed by the symmetry, right? If we look at the symmetry, before the symmetry, the chamfer is fine, but when we turn the symmetry off, it is welding these vertices together. This is because our tolerance is bigger than our chamfer distance, so it's welding any vertices along this edge that are within this tolerance, right? So let's turn that tolerance down, and we get that chamfer right back, which is sweet. And then We can turn that turbo smooth back on if we like. Oh, there we go. Alright, so that makes that nice and clean again. And then all we have to do now is go back into this chamfer and get these edges here, loop it around, loop this edge around. Oh, by the way, if you double click on an edge, you loop it. So if you hold Control and double click, you can automatically loop an edge. When you have all of these, you can chamfer them. Oh, looks pretty good actually. Let's see. Yep. Nice. Alright, well, that's pretty much the model then. Right? Sweet. So now if you add some lights to it, of course, and some, you know, reflections or something like that, then you can get some nice highlights on these edges, you know? They would really come out like this stuff here. And this is nice and smooth now, so no problem. Sweet. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you think it was good, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't think it was good, give it a thumbs down. It's only fair. And yeah, subscribe if you want to see some more. I'm trying to put out a video a month now, but you know, if time permits, of course. So yeah, have a good time. Do some good models. See you soon.